You might recognize this place from a movie. Lots of them have been filmed here. Maybe Blade Runner, when Harrison Ford Steckert was told incorrectly that if you're not cop, you're little people. For me, my favorite point of reference in here is picturing Prince walking through here on his way to catch a train to Minneapolis. Ahead of his time. That's how Prince depicted himself traveling, of course, in the video for the song Cream. And where am I? Of course, Union Station. Big truck coming along here. And what am I doing? I'm going for a walk, long walk. Look at this building. It's one of the world's great transportation hubs. So, yeah, setting off from Union Station on a long walk. I'm going to switch the view up here and put the camera facing the other way so you can see what I'm looking at rather than me carry the camera the whole time. Okay, so heading out of the station, already overwhelmed with references. There's the Metropolitan Detention Center, which appeared on the cover of Mike Davis's City of Quartz, maybe the best book ever written about this city. The detention center representing from Davis's future in the 1980s, the future that came to be. And in that book, City of Quartz, rightly known as a very prescient work about incarceration, about the city, about inequality in this wealthy city that also has much more than its share of poverty. So I'm heading out towards Sunset Boulevard. That's the walk for the day. I'm exploring the idea that Los Angeles is a pedestrian city. And so I thought one way to do this would be to walk the length of what maybe is its longest street. So it doesn't start quite here, but Union Station just seems like such a significant place in and of itself, and a sort of pedestrian site as a train station and bus station, as a place to begin. So what am I going to do? I'm going to film a few pieces of the walk. I'm not going to film the whole thing. It's going to take me quite a while. Take me probably a good part of the day to make it, even if I do. So, but I'll set off up Cesar Chavez Avenue here. And at the corner here, again, reference Los Angeles. So references to film and references to all the communities that make up this great city are everywhere. Cielito Lindo is a classic, it's been there since the 1930s, old taqueria, and also represents immediately something so important about Los Angeles, which is its location as somewhere that was once in Mexico, and then after it became part of the United States, obviously a site of long-standing Mexican, Mexican-American, Chicana, Chicano, Latino presence. Here's the post office. I think that's where Charles Bukowski worked during his stint that made up the novel of that name. So we have community, we have transportation, we have literature. Again, it's Los Angeles. You can't go very far without seeing some important references. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna walk up Cesar Chavez, which again itself, the United Farm Workers organizer and legendary labor figure and activist. What I'm gonna do is, just as another reference to the many layered histories of this city, So I'm gonna walk up Cesar Chavez. I'm gonna take one and the only detour I'm gonna take on this walk before I get to the start of sunset, in which in which from there I'll make my way. You'll see the detour in a minute. So also while I'm walking, I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to film a little bit of this is just to have a bit of a record of a walk that I've wanted to do for a very long time. I wanted to do this walk for my 50th birthday, but COVID had other plans. That was now a year and a half ago. So I'm 51 and I'm setting out on this long-standing goal of mine, this kind of major urban hike. And it's again because I like exploring cities as a pedestrian. But Los Angeles has a particular poignancy around this because it's also a city that has some cars in it, and it's pretty known for that. But I'm following a bit of one of the lines in Tom Anderson's Los Angeles Plays Itself here, which is that only people who walk and only people who take the bus, only people who move, I mean, we could expand that to bicycles and wheelchairs and other skateboards, other modes of transportation, but essentially you get to know the city outside of a car. And even me, who's just a tourist passing through, we'll see if I can get a bit of a sense of the place as I go. I've been to Los Angeles before, but I've certainly never done this walk. There's City Hall. If you've ever seen a film noir, you may recognize that. It appears in many of them. So I'm almost at my 1 block detour. I'm just gonna cut over 1 block into Chinatown because I'm not quite at the start of sunset yet. It's still a couple of blocks up the hill, I believe. And the reason for the detour is because there's a nice set of steps that I want to walk up. But once I get to the start of sunset, I'll stay on it. I'd better, because I'm gonna get tired. I don't even know if I can walk this far. This street is like a marathon in length. So the pedestrian city. And then another line that comes from Los Angeles Plays Itself, which is a favorite movie of mine. So great on all the references to films, lots of which I haven't seen, but some that I have, is of course Anderson's comment on the film Sunset Boulevard, one of the great well, movies of all time, but a great film of the 1950s, which most people probably know. Stars William Holden as the writer who winds up, his car is repossessed, and then he winds up at the old mansion of an old movie star from the silent era, and the plot unfolds from there, leading ultimately to his death, which you see right at the beginning of the film. But Anderson's line about this is that it's something to the effect of, in Los Angeles, without a car, you're dead without a car. And that's also a pretty predominant way of seeing Los Angeles, that you can't, that a car is a prerequisite to being in this city and to moving around it. And of course, like so many cities, that's not true. Lots of people don't have cars, but it's a kind of an interesting and fun way to read the film Sunset Boulevard as a movie about car culture. Very few people would probably view it through that lens. So there's a little bit of that spirit too. So two contradictory ideas emerging from Los Angeles Plays Itself. And that's the idea that only the pedestrian knows the city, and the contradictory idea that that without a car you're dead in a city like this one. Okay, so maybe I'll just keep filming until I get to the top of this staircase, and then I'll cut for a bit, and then I'll kind of come and go with a few clips of my walk as I make my way God knows this would be of interest to anyone but myself, but I like having the record of, again, a walk that I've looked forward to. I've wanted to do this for so many years, and here today, finally, I'm getting to it. You can see the stairs there, and I don't know if I should go up a big staircase at the beginning of a long walk. I might use up all my energy right at the start, but it's a nice one. My hotel's in this area, so I noticed this earlier, and I just love staircases. I know they're not accessible for everyone, and there needs to be alternatives to how people who are not in cars also get around when there's steep hills, so that's one thing worth noting. I like them aesthetically. I also like them because even with the caveats about their exclusionary nature for some, they also are a quite uniquely pedestrian way of interacting with the city. And of course, in movies, there's some important staircases. Hitchcock's, what is it, the 39 Steps, The Exorcist, Rocky, The Joker. There's lots of staircases that are pretty significant in a lot of films. And being in Los Angeles, movies are unsurprisingly on my mind. I put in my own Twitter page, I put a set of stairs as the kind of landing page image, and those are the stairs at the University of Havana, which play an iconic role in an iconic movie in I Am Cuba, when the students are the left-wing students are washed down the stairs by the police forces under the control of the Batista regime in the late days before the Cuban Revolution. And the steps in I Am Cuba, those steps, which I like to pay an homage to, are themselves an homage to the steps in Battleship Potemkin in Odessa. Climbing the stairs is a free workout built right into your day. That's hard to argue with. Commit to be fit. Okay, we got some positive messages to get us to the top here. Yeah, so staircases and movies, walking and cities. This is the day. Taking the stairs burns calories and relieves stress. The greatest wealth is health. Don't know if you can see that. There's nice messages along the way. When they finally get Russia out of Ukraine, maybe they'll need to make another step up to a healthier lifestyle. Take the stairs. When they finally get Russia out of Ukraine, maybe they'll need to make another movie on the Odessa steps. Make your feet your friend. Maybe they need to make another movie there to chart the oppression, the horrible oppression that's gone along with that particular invasion. Take positive steps to a healthier lifestyle. As those steps in Odessa in particular are known for their association with a film about oppression and revolution. Okay, so I'm just about at the top of these ones, but here's a bit of a lookout. So I don't know the geography of this city so well, but I'm looking east, I believe, out over Chinatown. You can't see the LA River from here, but it's not far away. I think that might be the LA County Jail straight ahead of me. And the taller building over there, that's Union Station, back where I started. And the East Los Angeles on the other side, the river will probably be running along there somewhere, and then East Los Angeles on the other side. Okay, let me get on with it. That's nice. Someone's going up and down the stairs, really getting their morning exercise here. Let me continue. Okay. Oh, congratulations. You've climbed 147 steps. Great. I wonder how many steps, as in paces, I have yet to go. Okay. I think I'm about 2 blocks from the start, so maybe I'll pick this up when I get to the beginning of Sunset Boulevard. There's Cesar Chavez Avenue back there. I'll rejoin it, make my way along, and film a little clip at the start of Sunset Boulevard. Okay, I'm on Cesar Chavez as I turn onto, coming up on Figueroa, and I believe this is where, yeah, exactly, where Chavez ends and Sunset begins. So this is the official, I guess, beginning of the walk. Perfect timing with the crossing. It's Los Angeles, so the roads are pretty wide. The cars move pretty fast. Lots of big trucks and SUVs. Here's the freeway. The first of a couple that I'll cross along the way. So here's a very typical California kind of scene. Downtown over there. Oh, you can see the top. I don't know if on this camera. There's the top of the US Bank. That's of course where the peaceniks got theirs in Independence Day. That extremely conservative film, conservative and patriotic film in which people who thought they would greet the visitors in some kind of spirit of harmony and peace were obviously shown to be just fools who were blown away right at the start. Again, Los Angeles, there's so many things to see that will just put you right in frame of mind around a movie. Okay, so one other thing in this area, if I was gonna take, no more detours because now I'm on Sunset, but if I was gonna take Custer Ave, okay, if we want more reminders of the history of colonialism that structures everything about this walk, and my sort of, what might we say, arrogance in thinking that it's just something that I'm just allowed to do on territory stolen from people who were here earlier. There's also lots of reminders of that as well. A reminder that I walk through this city, that in whatever mode of transportation I would take, I pass through this city as a white man, a white Canadian man, whose, for example, interactions with the police are going to be of a certain sort that, if they happen, which they probably won't, which also probably wouldn't give me cause for too much concern. So, of course, there's just so many layers to the history, and very much the structured racial present, which began with the Metropolitan Detention Center back down at by Union Station. Okay, Echo Park. So there was one other detour I was just going to mention, which I'm not going to take. But if I was going to take one more detour, if this walk wasn't so long, it would be coming up on the right, because just more or less over this hill is Dodger Stadium, which is one of the greatest monuments to car culture that I can imagine. Just look at a photo of it in aerial view, and the parking lot that that surrounds it. I mean, it's also connected to these other histories I'm making some reference to in that Chavez Ravine, I believe it's called, the historian Eric Avila has written about how the Chicano families who were removed there from there in order to create that stadium. It's also a history of conquest, and then of course that sits upon the already foundational in the 1950s history of settler colonialism going back through the 19th century and earlier, with this being not only part of Mexico at one point, as I mentioned. That would have been from from about 1820 to 1848, and then of course before that it was part of the Spanish Empire, and before that was the would have been lived in by the indigenous polities who would have organized life centuries ago. So car culture as conquest with the Dodger Stadium, and again another film reference which is mentioned in Los Angeles Plays Itself, but is its own important film which needs to be seen. Problematic and important film is The Exiles, in which you can see contemporary indigenous peoples in downtown Los Angeles, back there, Bunker Hill area, living in the city in the 1950s. Probably many of whom moved to Los Angeles as part of the relocation programs that were part of termination policy in the post-war era. And they also congregated, showing that settler at Chavez Ravine. You can see it in the film, where Dodger Stadium now is. And so you can see just in that alone that this history of conquest is also a history of so many other things: resistance, resilience, community building. The termination policies themselves are often rightly seen as a 20th century tool of settler colonial kind of state policy, but also as some historians who have also shown were sort of vehicles for indigenous people, or vehicles that indigenous peoples used to continue community relations and to forge new ones in the urban environment. So that turnoff is coming up, but I won't be taking it, because, as I say, I have far enough to go as it is on this walk. Better view of the U.S. Bank. I took it off the head strap because I'm easier to carry in my pocket this way. But I also just noticed that pavement ad. I guess they have a box set out, and reminding me that the only thing I don't like about this walk is that I'm doing it by myself, which I'm not from the city and I don't live here, so that's not surprising. And I'm just I'm in California to go to an academic conference, which I'm very much looking forward to. Good morning. Which is kind of in honor of my doctoral dissertation advisor, Nelson Lichtenstein, the great labor historian, Nelson Lichtenstein. So I'm here in Los Angeles a day early, and today taking a break from marking papers back where I work at the University of Birmingham to go on this walk. So I couldn't do it with anyone. I'm just doing it by myself. But seeing that pavement sign makes me think of my friend Glenn, and that I wish he was with me on this walk, or any number of other friends. So I guess that's part of what documenting this means, is that do I recommend doing this or not? So far, absolutely yes. It's really interesting to just do this as a project and make my way through the city in this way. But I definitely would also recommend, if you can, doing it with someone else. I can imagine instead of me rambling into a camera, so weird, I can imagine all of the interesting conversations I might be having with any number of friends along the way. this road here. And the stadium might be up there. I'm very close to the turnoff part. I'm not quite sure where it is, and it doesn't much matter. Pretty good cloud cover so far. It's 5 to 7. Typical me, not organized. I didn't even look at my watch when I left Union Station. It was probably around 6:15. So I've been walking for just about 45 minutes now. And it's pretty mild. It's probably in the 60s or something, temperature-wise. I'm not sure, but so far so good. Because the sun will probably come out later, by which time hopefully I'll have gained a fair bit of ground and not get caught in too much of the sun. But this is Los Angeles. We'll see. Avenue of the Athletes. Not sure what that is. And the other thing about this is, being a tourist, I'm going to obviously miss. There's probably things that locals will be like, how could you walk past that and not comment on it? And I'm too ignorant to even know. That's part of it too. It's about knowing the city as a pedestrian, I guess, but as a tourist, that knowledge is extremely thin, non-existent. I'm gaining knowledge as I go, I suppose, but there it is. Where I am now, which is Echo Park. So the park itself, with its famous lake and boats, is probably maybe just down this road. It's not far from here. But this is also a point of personal interest for me because of a venue that's coming up. I don't even know what it's called, and I don't know if I'm going to recognize it. But we'll see. When I was a graduate student at UC Santa Barbara, sometimes friends of mine from Canada, from Vancouver, would come down to visit for different reasons, and of course Los Angeles would be a draw. And my friends, in particular, who play in the band Frog Eyes, would have reason to come down to play shows, not in Santa Barbara, but here in Los Angeles. And I would sometimes come down to meet them and spend some time with them. And one of the places that they played that I came down and saw them and we hung out was, I'm pretty sure, right across the street here. I'm gonna see if I can see something that looks like it might be a nightclub. I think maybe that place with the pink outside. I'll need to show this part. This is documentation for my friends Carrie and Mel, to ask them if they remember or recognize where this was. This is quite a nice memory of would have been in the maybe about 15 years ago or something. So lots of graphica, so maybe the space is something else now, but pretty sure I saw a show in there, or maybe it was no, that's a restaurant. Yeah. In any case, okay. Where am I now in this part? So, Echo Park, as I said, and Reservoir Street, I see here. Let's have a look over this bridge, another freeway, I'm sure. Oh, just a kind of major street. And one last thing in this clip, I have noticed some bike lanes along the way, which always catch my eye. These ones look a little scary, to be honest. I don't know. I can't imagine that cyclists feel very safe riding around in this city. But in the downtown, especially the old downtown, I did see some protected bike lanes, but not much, with lots of gaps in between them. But it is interesting to think about how, if ever there was a city where they've made lots of road space and they could afford some, one of my favorite topics, for bike lanes, Los Angeles could could certainly be one, and I know that's a very live conversation here in the city as well, and a complicated one in a city that is so divided in lots of ways, that automobility somewhat represents, but also that it interacts with in some pretty complicated ways that I'm not very qualified to say anything about. So, last thing about the Echo Park area, as I'm walking through, you can see, oh, the park's just down there. Oh, there it is. Oh, nice. That would be a definite detour if I felt like I had time, and another view of the downtown from here as well. Okay, carrying on from Echo Park. It's only, I haven't even been walking for an hour. Okay, so let me keep going. Nice little cafe and record shop. Also noting I'm at the corner here of Sunset and Mohawk Street. Reminders of indigeneity everywhere, even though we're a long ways from the Mohawk Nation out on the west coast here. And there's a lot of, it's interesting, the rents must be high going up and up, but and there are definitely chains, Starbucks and things you would expect, but there's quite a number of small businesses all the way along as I've been walking as well. That'll probably be less so in later parts of the trip when I get towards Beverly Hills, but that's not for a long time yet. Okay, now I'm in Silver Lake, which is not too much beyond Echo Park. But it brings me to, I just realized, this is a detour I'm also not going to take because I need to stay on the course. But this is an even harder one now that I realize where I am. It's harder to not take this one, which is, I think it's maybe on this road. I'm right in the area of the, see, there's kind of a steep hill going up there. Maybe it's the next road over, I'm not sure. But wouldn't be hard to find. The Music Box, the steps from Laurel and Hardy's, the Music Box. I've seen them before, I've walked up them before. Oh, that's probably them down there. In any case, how could I have forgotten this earlier? That if ever there are important steps in a film, it's that one from the 1930s. And in some ways, the steps are more the main character than either Laurel or Hardy. And just a real treat to have a look at them and walk up them, but not today. But they're clearly one of the key attractions for someone like me in the Silver Lake area. Okay, so here we are, Silver Lake. This is interesting. It kind of continues on from some other infrastructure over there where the street is open to pedestrians more, kind of blocked off to cars, some planners you can see, or at least they're slowed down. This seems to expand the sidewalk, but the bike lane appears to be on the wrong side of the barrier. Not clear what's going on here. Maybe it has a specific reason. Maybe it was a temporary COVID measure for these cafes here. Who knows? Important corner on the way. Down there is the beginning of Santa Monica Boulevard, which would be its own fascinating walk across the city. closed, unfortunately. I am gonna... There's a piece of broken cup there. I am gonna get a donut on this walk. Partly as a nod to my friends back in Birmingham, who I was telling about this walk and who I'm in a reading group with, my Civic Square friends, who I'm in a reading group with on around Kate Rayworth's book, Donut Economics, which is a kind of really interesting, popular sort of rethinking of mainstream capitalist economic theory, I guess I would say. And in Rayworth's view, looking at sort of upending and rethinking and revising many of the assumptions that go into economic thought as taught in sort of Econ 101 style classes, and thinking about the rational economic man and, you know, sort of supply and demand without reference to, as Carl Polanyi would say, a kind of embedded market and these kinds of things. And the idea of the donut, also a very kind of visual book, looking at how we think in kind of visuality around concepts that we deploy, and that's very true for economics. And Rayworth is thinking about this idea of the donut. The inside of the donut, the hole, is where sort of represents the space that you don't want anyone to fall through inequality, and the outside of the donut is the kind of planet's ecological sort of limitations. And so thinking about how to create equality while being very mindful of the climate crisis, and how to revise, maybe. I don't know if I'd use such a strong word as overthrow in her case. Maybe I would add that in my own analysis. The need to, in my analysis, to overthrow gendered racial capitalism while being mindful of the limits of the planet's boundaries. Yeah, it's a very interesting take on that, and it's a good book to think with on a walk like this, because there is sort of both ends of both rings of the donut, I guess, are very much in evidence, and the problems with them, the deep inequality, the mass homelessness, which, you know, in a place like Los Angeles sometimes seems like it's just part of the city, which again brings us back to Mike Davis, who I mentioned earlier, who would be one person writing in the 80s, reminding us of just how much mass homelessness, like mass incarceration, are largely recent phenomena that the Ronald Reagan administration did so much to usher in and accelerate. Obviously with deeper roots in the 80s, but the 80s are the pivotal decade on these questions. The 80s is also, thinking about Reagan and deregulation, also a pivotal decade for the other side of the donut, which we also see, you know, particularly through the just amount of space for cars, the planet's limitations, and just how hard they're being pushed in this early decades of the 21st century. So anyways, yeah, it's been great back in where I now live in Birmingham, England, to read this book with a fantastic group of people who live in and around my community, and have lots of engaging, insightful, critical sort of things to say about the book as well. So they're very much on my mind as I'm continuing to make my way. I think I must be getting towards Hollywood at this point. I don't think this is Silver Lake anymore. I do have a phone, but it has such limited data that I'm not looking at it very much. So, which is also kind of in keeping with the spirit of this walk, of just sort of walking and looking around and not just looking down at my phone the whole time. So, anyways, yeah, I will continue to think about donut economics, and I'm getting hungry while I'm looking for a donut as I continue on this walk. I think approaching, probably at this point, West Hollywood. Let me just get a marker of where I am, because it looks like I'm coming up to a fairly major street here. Sunset Drive. Okay. Not sure. Let's have a look. Ah, Hollywood. Okay. Oh, I see. This is probably Hollywood Boulevard. Maybe it's the start of it. Okay, I will need to orient myself here to make sure that I continue on Sunset Boulevard and not end up going on another road. Pivotal corner here, and a difficult one to cross. It took me like 10 minutes to get across that intersection there. Okay, but good thing I did, because Sunset takes a little bit of a turn here where Hollywood Boulevard begins. So it looks like I'm entering the Hollywood part of Los Angeles. Can we please get massive signs that say that everywhere over roads for drivers in Birmingham, please? Just spotted one of my favorite buildings of all time. Probably can't even see it with this camera, but up on that hill over behind these signs, there's the Griffith Observatory. Which I love for numerous reasons. Obviously, it's another film landmark. That's where the Terminator first arrived. Greeted by Bill Paxton, was that his name? The actor who played Chet in Weird Science and Aliens 2, among other roles. I mean, I think he's been pretty recognized. Important actor for sure. Anyways, if I remember right, he's the first person that the Terminator met when he arrived up at the Griffith Observatory. Maybe more important, of course, that's where James Dean had his tires slashed when he was at the planetarium with his high school, of course, in Rebel Without a Cause. And interesting, the Rebel with a car, and who's, you know, that's a film very much it's centered around cars and driving in ways that we do well to think about. And I don't know what else, so many things up there. LL Cool J's going back to Cali, has some scenes up there. Music videos, of course, as I mentioned earlier with Prince, are a key part of what a walk like this conjures in one's mind. And of course, for me, the New Deal sensibility, the architecture, the aesthetics, the placement, and the way that it sort of, at its best, can represent a kind of American social democracy as a building as well. And I know I'm in Hollywood, or at least I know I'm close to Hollywood, because here's one of the huge Scientology buildings. Oh, and this looks like L. Ron Hubbard, I don't know what, road, street, place, here as well. So a definite change in feel from all those small independent shops in Silver Lake and Echo Park. Okay, crossing the 101. Which I was very close to at the beginning of this walk, down by Union Station's right by the 101, but now we're up in Hollywood. And there's enough of a haze. There's enough of a haze, if I'm oriented correctly. Maybe that's Hollywood Boulevard up there. The Hollywood sign is up there somewhere, but too hazy to see. Which is okay. I've seen it before, and everybody knows what it looks like. Oh goodness, just the sheer volume. Found something I was looking for at the Super Donut House. Now I need a place to sit down. This looks like it'll do. unglazed. Thinking about my friends in Birmingham. Hayworth and Sunset. And here is something legendary. Oh my goodness, it's amazing to see this. So the Sunset Car Wash. So this barrier, some people will automatically get why this is here, is because people skateboard here. Wow. Can I sit here for a second? This is remarkable. So, I'm an old skateboarder from the 1980s, and I came to California with my friends in the year 1990 on a skateboarding trip. I was never that good at skateboarding, but some of my friends were, and we came not to Los Angeles, but to the Carlsbad, kind of San Diego area, because we wanted to go to spots that we'd seen in skateboard videos that we watched. H Street Skateboard Company and so on back at that time. And what always was amazing was you'd watch these skateboard videos, you know, at least I did as a teenager, and skateboard, and watch these videos over and over. And there was less of them back then, and of course there wasn't YouTube that has a million. And so you'd really get to know what people did at certain spots, and then kind of think, you know, I could maybe try that, and then get to the spot, and it was always the same for me. I always was like, oh my goodness, it's so much harder. Even in the video, it just looks easier than it is, even if it was something that I already knew was pretty hard. So this is a fantastic example of that very principle. So the skateboarder Milton Martinez came here, and what he did was, well, other skateboarders did sort of other moves here. The idea is you go onto the roof and you roll along the roof on the skateboard, and then you go off the end of the roof and you land into this embankment, and then you just roll out onto the street. So back before this handrail was here. And what Milton Martinez did was to do a kickflip, flipping the board with his feet, a ollie kickflip off of the roof, landing into the bank. It's basically like impossible. I mean, I'm old and I don't really skateboard anymore, but I still can barely comprehend that someone was able to do that. But even if you don't skateboard and you have no interest in skateboarding, this is one of the most sort of monumental things that happen. It's like, it's kind of, you know, sits next to, if you know what Tony Hawk's 900 at the X Games sort of means for skateboarders. It's just one of these moments that is just very pivotal in the whole activity of skateboarding. But the thing, if you want, just look it up on YouTube if you're interested. But it's not just the feet, it's also just the person in question's like just total determination to do it. He doesn't do it right away. It takes a long time to do it. Yeah, it's just something to watch. And the fact that he comes back after an extreme injury and ultimately pulls it off is just kind of like the perfect narrative arc. So, you know, I've been walking and talking to myself into this camera and thinking about Hollywood and history and movies. The film, the My War film, it's called, just kind of a series of these skateboard videos of very difficult maneuvers that take people like real effort to pull off. The Milton Martinez My War video at the Sunset Car Wash, kickflip into the bank, is just part of the history of film and kind of great, if not great filmmaking, but just sort of like really compelling story, as well as obviously a feat that like just about no one else could possibly get themselves to do. So Sunset Car Wash, that's a big one. And as you see, they put up the barrier to prevent people from trying more stuff there, which doesn't surprise me because the injuries that people would get and have got trying stuff there is is pretty outrageous. But talking about, you know, an example of kind of thinking about cities and thinking about how to use cities, what cities are for, who they're for. Obviously, skateboarding is one way into a sort of critique of public space and what is public space and how can it be used. And sure, it's dangerous for someone to try to do tricks off that roof into that bank, but look how dangerous it is to have, like, however the hell many lanes of car traffic there are here, which certainly not all of which are necessary. So, interesting. Okay, so Sunset and Crescent Heights Boulevard. I think we start to turn here, sort of approaching the Sunset Strip at this point, and there's Century City, I guess, way down there. So, making some progress, but still quite a long way to go. I haven't seen the famous nightclubs though, but I must not be that far. They must be coming up. My feet are getting a little tired. I wore these regular old shell toes, which are comfortable, but I probably should have worn some proper, someone my age should wear sensible sneaks when going for a long walk like this. So my feet are probably gonna be pretty sore by the time I get to the end, which I'm thinking I'm probably gonna do. It's 20 after 10. It's pretty early in the day, and I still have a long way to go. I'm not looking forward to the kind of Beverly Hills part, but I think that's coming up before too long. Yeah, I have the day to do this, more or less, and then get back to my hotel and mark some more papers. But I'm feeling optimistic at this point that I'm gonna make it. Sherborne and Sunset. Some more landmarks here. There's the Viper Room. I don't know so much about these spots. River Phoenix died outside of the Viper Room. That's about all I know. I'm sure it's also a famous music venue outside of that. So the Whiskey A Go-Go and the Rainbow Bar and Grill must be up here somewhere. Those are the other two I know of. Let's see. And I think they're all in a cluster. Let's see here. I didn't film them, but I met a cool crew of roller skaters on the way. I told them about my walk, and then I ran into them later as well. They were putting up posters for a roller skating event, which would probably be great to check out. Whiskey A Go-Go. Here it is. Okay. So, Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue. I guess you go far back enough, the Doors, all that stuff. All here. Okay, interesting. Oh, here. Since opening in 1964, the Whiskey A Go-Go has been one of the world's most prominent and important rock and roll venues. Its stage has served as a launching pad for generations of music legends, including Johnny Rivers, Frank Zappa, Love, The Doors, Buffalo Springfield, Guns N' Roses, and Motley Crue. I got 3 of them. Oh, there's the rainbow. Okay. I guess this is where you could find Lemmy ensconced. So, Lemmy's Lounge. Okay. Nice little mural there. Let's have a quick look. There he is. Born to lose, live to win. Just left Sunset Strip, and now it's Beverly Hills. So this is the least interesting part of the walk for sure. And I think it's pretty long. Not much to see, and I don't imagine there will be. I've walked parts of this before, other times I've been in the city. So what do we have? Setting of sitcoms. Scenes of wealth. Of absurd wealth that structurally produce the poverty and homelessness that this city is has so much of. I guess the cars, I'm not very good at recognizing this, but I guess the cars get more expensive, more of them, as you come this way. So yeah, this for a while. But it's part of it. And it also is like, you know, getting to know it. This is also part of getting to know a city, knowing that this is where, so, you know, this is one of the areas where the wealth is concentrated. Whoa, there's a fast one. One of the areas where the wealth is concentrated. And to walk through here after walking through other areas and seeing so many people who have it so hard, and thinking about the relationship between the two, and again how one produces the other, and then in turn how state resources are spent to police such an unequal distribution of wealth, which brings us all the way back to the Metropolitan Detention Center back down at Union Station. So this is not interesting to look at, but it also is illustrative of a really, really important aspect of what Los Angeles is. Okay, more later. Back to the donut for a minute. And the thing that's conjuring it is something that I can't communicate in this video, which is the smell, this beautiful citrusy smell right now, even with all this car traffic on the side of me. And it's just making me think how strange it is that this is the greenest part of the walk, by far probably, and yet it's also the most sterile, even amongst the beauty of this fruit, these oranges that are growing here next to me. And just the amount of labor, primarily Black and Latino labor, that makes all this possible every day. It's really making me think about just how appropriate the donut is as a model for thinking about the planet, thinking about cities, the donut at the city level, as my friends in Birmingham, you know, often conceptualize things in a really helpful way. And here you really see it, that a kind of unsustainable, you know, very heavily water dependent, I mean, I don't know anything about botany, but my guess is that this part of the city requires a lot of water to maintain it. And this is a dry part of the country. And of course, Los Angeles water politics also brings us back to the beginning of this walk, when I started just outside of Union Station and went through Chinatown, which of course, one of the you know, most influential films about this city is set there and in other places. So, you know, water politics, power and corruption even in the kind of fictionalized, you know, version you get in Polanski's Chinatown. The details are less important than the basic idea that that there's a long-standing kind of, you know, awareness that that rich people end up with more than their share and create things such that that's the way that it will be. And it just seems like a really, again, walking through this area takes a long time, and that's its own education, because the thoughts that you might have and the kind of things that this area represents sink in a bit more deeply when you move slowly through it and take in its sights and sounds and indeed smells. And I know it's loud here on this, you know, on Sunset itself, because it's still the main road going through here, and then all the quiet streets would lead off from this one. So that's also interesting to think about the houses that I'm walking immediately past, even though we're not really seeing them, and neither am I, are probably the cheap ones because they're on the main road compared to whatever's further in and further up the hill. Not too surprising, I haven't seen a lot of other pedestrians along here. I did see one person on a bicycle. That was nice. Only one though, so far. I mean, that's the other thing about this, you know, larger conversation about bike lanes and gentrification, which I feel like is kind of often exaggerated or misrepresented or kind of oversimplified. That bike lanes simply equal gentrification and displacement, when, you know, lots of people without money don't have cars and could benefit from safe infrastructure to move themselves through urban spaces without cars. So I would challenge a kind of any simple equation between bike lanes and gentrification, but nonetheless, that still doesn't mean that there isn't something more complicated to think through and say about them in places where, you know, one of my friends, Radhika Natarajan, was saying in Portland how a city well known for good cycling infrastructure, but that hasn't always benefited communities of color in Portland who still need to travel farther distances to get to work, in which bicycles are not really practical. So there are things to say about that. But one answer could be, how about normalize bike lanes in rich areas first? There's lots of space here, that's for sure. I mean, there's been lots of space on Sunset during this entire walk, but it would be nice to see it here first. What is this? This is Alpine Drive. Maybe start with Alpine Drive, since I happen to be here. Make a safe kind of junction here at these two roads, and run bike lanes at least up to Sunset Strip and back down that way towards UCLA or something. Could be a good place to start in terms of what they need here. Okay, so Alpine it is. Continuing on, same old Beverly Hills. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave, etc. This is interesting. Sidewalk just ends. Okay, quite the statement. And at this point, there's no sidewalk on the other side. Where am I? Ladera Drive. This Beverly Hills section's feeling a little endless at this point. Oh, maybe that's the end of Beverly Hills with that sign. Hopefully. Lots of different posh canyons in there. But to come back to something that I was thinking about earlier, Of course, no one stopped me, or worse, for walking through here, which is just obviously like not really meant for pedestrians. The sidewalk is kind of a formality or something, and obviously to some degree for the workers who service all these homes to move around on a bit, I guess, but most of them will arrive in trucks and vehicles too, I imagine. But in any case, I'm bored with this section, but I'm also safe. And that's because this whole thing is structured by whiteness, first of all, and heteropatriarchy at the same time. So boredom is probably the biggest of my problems here, which just speaks to more of the ways that this is a pretty exclusive area. Coming to another end of sidewalk here. I don't even see what I'm supposed to do. Oh, is it to a bus stop? Is that why? No, just to a sign. Okay, I better turn the camera off and figure out what I'm doing here. Same problem again. Didn't anticipate this, to be honest. Just no sidewalk. Fuck. Okay, what to do but keep going. Oh, maybe there's a little bit of a path on that side. Oh, big trucks. Okay, I'd rather see them coming towards me than coming up from behind. Okay, this is something. See how this goes for a while. Pretty unnerving, really. Because when they come fast. You don't even want to step in the road for a minute. Looks like there's some sidewalk ahead. This is a fair stretch, though, which the presence of this path in and of itself tells us that pedestrians certainly do come through here. But clearly their safety is of no concern to whoever is in charge of the road layout here. Familiar enough story. Visiting from Birmingham, England as I am. Who knows? Okay, looks like I'm back in business with a sidewalk at least. Mapleton and Sunset. Back to no sidewalk. Considerably wider stretch here, so it doesn't feel quite so bad, but some of the vehicles come so fast, and I've seen a number of those big front end, whatever they are, massive trucks, F-150s or whatever, and they do exactly what they're meant to do: intimidate and dominate the space. Narrowing again. This really sucks. And it's not like there's an option. The other side of the street's worse. Whoa. God damn. Okay, let's hope the sidewalk returns. The path's gonna get better. Look, I mean, you can see pedestrians. Clearly this wouldn't be here if people weren't walking through here. Hardly the only one. Outrageous. Still no sidewalk, but I see now I'm coming to Bel Air. I don't know if that's, well, it looks like a sidewalk is beginning, but out of the fire of boredom of Beverly Hills into the frying pan of whatever the hell Bel Air has. Oh my goodness, what's this? Acknowledgement of pedestrians. Crosswalk. Okay. I don't know much about Bel Air. Maybe that's it up there. That's certainly the sign. Okay. So I'm at Bel Air Road and Sunset. Heading probably at this point somewhere towards UCLA. As I've been waiting here for a long time for this light to change, I just noticed something great. There's a crosswalk over there on Bel Air Road that leads exactly from nowhere to nowhere. Okay, here's my light. From grass with no sidewalk to other grass with no sidewalk. I wonder what the planning process was for approving with that crosswalk. Great. Okay, hello Bel Air. Okay, Hillgard, Copa de Oro, UCLA. So it looks like I'm out of Bel Air too. I have to say though, UCLA, you do a bit better on this in the sidewalk department as well. This does not seem very accessible for one of the major roads going around the outside of one of the like world universities. Okay, well, and also begins with a huge parking lot. Well, at least there's space away from the fast-moving cars. And it's also nice to be walking past here because as a historian, of course, this is one of the great history departments here at UCLA, and some of my intellectual heroes work here. So that's kind of nice. Still passing the UCLA campus. You can see the sports field and what have you in there. Can't believe UCLA thinks this is acceptable and accessible for people to get to and from their campus if they're coming along this road. It's not very busy, which just means when they do come, they come that much faster. Huh. Unnerving. This truck, look at this. Not cool. I'm not sure if this is still UCLA, but I'm not far from it. And these guys here have just passed me jogging. We're the second group who has. So probably students. So it's likely that students use this as an area for jogging, which, you know, somebody needs to get the chancellor out of their chauffeur-driven car and get them to walk the perimeter of their campus and see the parts that are not safe for people traveling outside of cars. It's so basic. Quite surprising, really, that UCLA would be so bad on this. Veteran Ave and Sunset, which I think brings me to the end of UCLA. It's a massive campus. Been walking for quite a while since I saw the first sign. But yeah, they really need to do something about the pedestrian access around the outside of their campus, that's for sure. Now approaching the 405, the biggest freeway that I will pass on the way over here. So this is, I mean, it's interesting in that this is a kind of infrastructure that is famously, even more than the other ones that I've crossed over freeways, you know, not friendly or pleasant for pedestrians or anybody else outside of a car for that matter. But also interesting, lots of that. Also interesting, as bad as it is, and it's bad, it's not as bad as UCLA. I'm safer here than I was walking along the perimeter of the University of California, Los Angeles. That really says something, because this is really bad too. Uh-oh. Oh, pedestrians prohibited. Okay, from going that way. But I can't cross. Yes. Whoa, this does not feel safe. Okay. We'll come flying up here. Sign for someone crossing in a wheelchair. That would probably also feel scary. I'm okay though. Alright, so here's another crossing. And up there's the Getty, which is an amazing building and just kind of place to check out. I've been there once before. Hey, no, look at that. Whoa. They're supposed to stop, but they won't. Wow, all those cars just went right through that light. All them. I mean, part of it is they don't care, maybe. Part of it is they're just not used to pedestrians being here too, I guess. This is wild. Okay, think donut. And think how much it's gonna take to achieve. Okay, right where it's going. Oh my God. Just the noise. So wild that this is just normal. Imagine is that a hotel, apartments? Imagine staying in there. Another film connection with the Getty is, okay, what is this? There isn't even a light. Just run if you have to. Okay, let's see. Oh my God. This is not good. Pedestrians have been killed here over the years. It seems like so many possibilities. All bad. Long light, but that's okay. I'll wait for it. Well, it's not okay. It shouldn't be long, but it's okay in that there's no way I'm not going to wait for it. So, Church Lane and Sunset. Quite funny, Church Lane suggests some kind of quaint little pathway or something. That's not what we get here. Okay, some lights are changing. Still not my turn. And even when it is, as we saw, that doesn't mean it's going to be safe or that people are going to wait. For pedestrians back in Birmingham, but this one's pretty bad. But yeah, there's the Getty, and that would be another detour if I was going to take them. Oh, my feet are sore. I'm not at all inclined to take detours at this point. But But I will say one thing about it, which is, again, the film connection, and it connects up a little bit to the Sunset Boulevard theme, and that's, my God, is this light ever going to change? The film Against All Odds, which the Phil Collins song sort of was, I guess, written in connection with, and the final scene in Against All Odds in the 80s, oh, here's my light, is filmed up there. But interestingly, it's before the Getty exists. It's property developers, they're building their new development up there in the plot of the film as it finishes. And just a kind of interesting connection, because then the Getty is what comes in its place. But the connection to Sunset Boulevard is deeper, though, in that Against All Odds is a kind of, well, it's a remake of Out of the Past, perhaps the greatest noir film ever. So the connection is the noir connection between Sunset Boulevard, between Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard and oh, what is that director's name? Jacques Racour or something? I can't remember the name. But anyways, the Robert Mitchum and Kirk Douglas film Out of the Past, which is maybe the greatest noir. So, but I don't know. Sunset Boulevard is sort of a noir. I guess it is. I guess it fits the genre. I don't know what experts say, but not as clearly as Out of the Past with its theme of fate. But in any case, I guess Sunset Boulevard has the theme of fate too, come to think of it. Okay, well, maybe the connections are even more than I was initially thinking when looking up at the Getty. In any case, the noir sensibility, which is just always so fascinating given that Los Angeles is such a sunny place. I guess that's sort of part of how it sort of came to be as a sort of counterpoint to the endless sun here. And anyways, Out of the Past, Against All Odds, and then a sort of quasi remake is the Vito Mortensen film History of Violence, which more like, it's a kind of a strange remake because the beginning is a really strong echo of Out of the Past and Against All Odds, but then it kind of goes in another direction. It's like a sort of partial remake, I guess. So that's just another thing that connects the films to this long walk. And maybe even Against All Odds with Phil Collins, the song, which will now be in my head for the rest of this walk, which is, you know, kind of ultra 80s ballad. Yeah, it's a little bit like, connects a little bit to the Pedestrian theme. As if, well, if the city could sing, maybe it would sing those words to the pedestrians of Los Angeles. You're the only one who really knew me at all. So that's one other sort of thought, I guess, random as hell. But of course, Phil Collins, white dude from England, and where I also live. I guess I'm a white dude from England at the moment, even though I was raised in Canada. But of course, can't be the representative of this city. And I guess the sort of other end of this whole walk, I'm not at the end, that's for sure, but a sort of, as I'm moving into the long final stretch, a concluding thought, a first concluding thought, I guess I'll say, is that the person who best sort of, to my mind, represents, I guess, sort of what a walk like this can be like, can facilitate, is Octavia Butler, the science fiction novelist. whose book Parable of the Sower is, like Mike Davis's City of Quartz, and also a book right of that same moment, the early 1990s, is one of the great depictions of this city in literature, and it speaks so directly to racial capitalism, and again the issues raised by the donut economic sort of idea, thinking about social justice and thinking about climate crisis together. Octavia Butler could see all of that back in the 1980s, and then writing into the well, I mean, she'd been writing since the 70s, you know, major works, but with Parable of the Sower, which is the story of a teenage girl, African American girl in the city, set in the future, probably not too far from where we are now. I can't remember the year, but you know, in the kind of wreckage of what racism and neoliberalism have wrought, and with huge catastrophic sort of impacts on the climate. But one thing I learned, I read something that the writer Lynette George had recently written about Octavia Butler, something I didn't know about her, because I don't know that much about her biography. I was just extremely influenced by that novel, and Kindred too, for that matter, but that's a different story at the moment. But Octavia Butler was a pedestrian, was one of Los Angeles's, I'll say, you know, maybe Los Angeles's greatest pedestrian, and that she was a public transit user, and that's part of the kind of sensibility. And when I learned that, it made me think in new ways about Parable of the Sower, which is a book that I already am very interested in and very, again, influenced and very moved by. So there's something that specifically Butler does that connects to a kind of way of seeing the city from a pedestrian perspective. This is a school, I guess. That's just really worth thinking about on a walk like this. And you know, I have a theory that Mike Davis's City of Quartz and Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower and Leslie Marvin Silko's Almanac of the Dead, three crucial books that all come out right at the beginning of the 1990s. I have a kind of theory that all three of those books were so prescient. It's unusual to find books that are so just so many of the things that they write about the future kind of turn out to be true, or it looks more like we're on the road to what those futures and those depressing futures look like. And one thought I have about them is, you know, why is that the case? Why do these three books at that time have that kind of remarkable power? And obviously, you know, a central part of the explanation is the brilliance of the three people that are the authors of those books: Davis, Butler, and Silko. But another part of it for me is that they were able to see at the moment of the kind of triumph of liberal individualism represented by the end of the Cold War, they were able to see through that more clearly than anyone else, and therefore see where things would go, because they kind of anchored their analyses in long histories of colonialism and racial capitalism, and so they were able to bring a kind of imperial framework, thinking with longer histories of imperialism and thinking about those and where the future would go, thinking with those, and I think that's part of how those books have the power that they do. Obviously impossible without the individual geniuses as well of the three people in question. So anyways, that flows from thinking about cities again in a kind of pedestrian way, which in my sense, you know, I just want to learn from, basically, which is a reason why I'm on this walk. So I would say, if anybody could represent Los Angeles and represent the kind of questions that come to mind on a walk like this, and thinking about the challenges to try to sort out the deep and long-standing structures of inequality that make a landscape like this in lots of ways, and make disparities across different kind of structures of power so great. Butler is absolutely an essential voice for thinking about that. So really pleased that Lynette George wrote something about her pedestrian kind of way of being, because it just adds another really crucial layer to understanding such an important figure. Okay, so the long final stretch here, Barrington and Sunset. There's the Getty one more time. Another stretch with not much in the way of sidewalks, but I just noticed all this. I wonder what could have caused this. Lots of broken big pieces of plastic and glass. I wonder if anybody keeps track what the statistical sort of record is of what happens along here. Yeah, it would be interesting to know, Sunset from end to end, how many car crashes there are per year, per month, etc. Because definitely, I mean, it's a little bit like England in that way. Doesn't seem to be really any speed limit that in any way matters. But more important than that, to my mind, isn't so much like the individual drivers are driving too fast and they're dangerous. That's one thing. I mean, if people are buying vehicles like that SUV right there, that's like 10 times bigger than you need, then what are you gonna do? But road engineers could play a role in just rendering the streets such that you couldn't go so fast. Lots of ways you can do that, but it seems to be very little interest. Okay, Anita and Sunset. Clifford and Sunset. Slow down for Julia. What that could be in reference to. At a bus stop, no less. Whatever happened here, it obviously didn't persuade any road engineers to do anything about making any kind of change. Sunset and Burlingame. It's a bit worried there wasn't going to be. There's an acknowledgement that pedestrians exist. They don't want you to cross here. They want you to cross at the crosswalk over there, suggesting that they get that, like, there are pedestrians around here. Well, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. I thought from back there that the sidewalk was ending again, but it's just gotten a little narrow, which is not that bad. And then it's got this barrier too. So not the worst stretch, that's for sure. Even though, like, highly inaccessible. I can get through here, okay, that's fine. It's good and it's old. Interesting. And obviously would be a barrier for lots of different people to try to come through here. I kind of picture, I don't know where, I'll need to look it up. I kind kind of picture that this is the kind of area where William Holden's character first goes off the road into Nora Desmond's property. To my memory, I haven't seen Sunset Boulevard in a few years, but it looks quite like this. Yeah, anyways, another one to look up. Another example of not so much things I'm learning on this walk, but things I'm sort of being reminded to learn and figure out. Okay, let's see, what do we got here? It's getting a little worse. My God, how can this be the like acceptable? Oh my God, crazy. Well, one thing I do learn from this walk is that road engineers internationally don't care about pedestrian safety, not nearly as much as they care about driver convenience, that's for sure. So many examples on this walk. Sidewalk work ahead. Pedestrians proceed with caution. This is at Amalfi and Sunset. Those kind of signs are always so funny to me because it makes it seem like there's any sort of element of care for what happens to pedestrians as they make their way, when so much of the layout tells you the opposite. So I'm not sure. We'll see what comes ahead. Oh, someone on a bike. Be careful. Brooktree Road and Sunset. Look at this bus stop sign. It's an advertisement that says, while you wait on the bus, remember that failing city leaders think you'll wait here forever for them to actually do something. The city is ours, not theirs. That sounds pretty good. Join us at www.risetogether.la. I'll definitely have a look at that. Nice to see another person on their bike. It makes me think maybe next time, now that I'm tired too from the walk, a bike ride's feeling good. Las Lomas and Sunset. I really am getting close. Maybe my friend Kwok Chung and I could do this ride together one day. That would be really nice. And on a bike, you could take in all the detours that you wanted, including going up to the Getty and so on. But I mean, it's not like it feels exactly safe either, so it would need to be a cautious ride. If they would fix the road, I mean, I doubt that's on anybody's agenda, but protected bike lanes from end to end would make it something lots of people could do, which would be pretty cool. But even as it is, I could think of friends who it would be nice to come out here and do the ride with. Okay. Bienvenida en Sunset. Can feel the breeze off the water. Getting there. Though I keep saying that the end is much longer than I realized. I think because I thought I was getting to the end long before I was. The 4:05 was a very long time ago. What time is it? 5 after 3. I can't remember when it was when I passed there, but I remember thinking, oh, it's sort of home stretch or something. It's been more than a home stretch. But I can see the water, so that's obviously a good sign. Even though I'm now walking back away from it again. Wow, these two vehicles, the van and the SUV, just hit each other on the road. It's great. I'm sure it's pretty par for the course. Scared me though. I heard them bump into each other coming down behind me. But looks like everyone's okay. Sunset and the Pacific Coast Highway. End of the line. I made it. Now let me just cross one last brutal street. How you can get across this. Looks like over there. And maybe find somewhere to sit down. Some blisters, some blood, but it feels really good to get my shoes off. Oh, I've got some nice company down here. Look at all these pelicans and other birds. Nice dog over there. Let me get my feet in the water. Oh, this feels so good. Oh, I wish my kids, Clara and Roland, were here. They love the beach so much. They'd love this. Feels nice. Oh, soaked already. Oh, that hurts, the blisters, but it feels good. Okay, now to sit down. Okay, some very final thoughts. This was a good idea. I enjoyed this. It was hard. It was physically hard for me. My feet are hurting, and my legs are hurting. But it was good. I recommend it. I encourage it. I would love to see other people's documentations of doing this walk, and hear what kind of thoughts they have. They'd be much more interesting than mine as they went. Definitely it'd be good to do with someone. I'd love to do this with my partner, Jacqueline. Other friends I could think of along the way would make it more pleasant, I guess. Hard to deal with those sections though, and there were a lot of them. I got sick of filming them, where the sidewalk just ends. You have to run across the dangerous busy road or try and stay on. There's sometimes no sidewalk on either side. That was pretty shit actually, in places. It just seemed so dangerous and so unnecessary given that the road, Sunset Boulevard, is very wide at every single step of the way. But yeah, it was good and I would recommend it. I mean, in terms of kind of the ideas that I set out with about, dying without a car versus learning about the city. Like, I made it, I didn't die, but definitely city planners and engineers, road engineers here don't really care if you do as a pedestrian, it seems. And that's really too bad. And it's one thing for me, again, white guy from Canada, middle class person doing this, optionally, but obviously for many people, getting around the city, this is a pedestrian city, even though it's also a car city. Lots of people here get around the city on public transit and without cars, and it's just a real injustice that they have to navigate a city that's set up in ways to endanger them, some in order to make it convenient for others is really unfortunate. Same story in Birmingham where I live too, though, even though the national and city car cultures are different, but definitely more commonalities than not, I would say. I would also say that this reinforced some things, around car culture, something I think about so much, like, you know, it's basically like privatization and enclosure of the commons, of the public space of roads. That's remains this road. This walk did nothing to disturb that sort of idea in my mind, and only reinforced it. It also reinforced in my mind that Mike Davis and Octavia Butler are right about Los Angeles, about what it is, what it's becoming, and what it could become. You know, I mentioned Leslie Marvin Silko as well. She's not writing about Los Angeles specifically, more Tucson, San Diego, and places south of the U.S.-Mexico border. But in terms of particularly Butler and Davis on Los Angeles, I mean, they just remain, you know, some of the most important voices on this city. They're not the only ones, but it confirmed for me, thinking about them as I was walking. It was also nice to think about donut economics, you know, from my reading group and my friends back in Birmingham, Charlotte Bailey, our leader, and everybody who joins us for that. It was nice to be able to think while I was walking about our discussions about that book and its uses, and our critiques of it as well, were really useful. One other thought I had, again, random like everything on this, is I wish they would take the footage. I was thinking more about this after the Sunset Car Wash. I wish they would take all the footage from Milton Martinez's kickflip into that bank and give it all to Werner Herzog and let him put it together again in another kind of documentary fashion. And he's into skateboarding too, so that could be cool. Okay, I think that's what I got. Thanks anybody who watched this and came with me on this journey, but more, I would love to see other people, again, I would really, it'd be so interesting to see what other people thought about doing this walk. Okay, I think the bus stop's right over there, so let me get on that and make my way. Now my next part of the journey, which I will not film, is to find my way back to Union Station on public transit, bus and train, I think. We'll see. Bye. Oh yeah, and I think I forgot to say, I kind of lost track of the time. It's 3:45, so I think I left it around 6:15, however long that is. I wasn't really keeping track, and I've been here for 15 minutes or something now as well, so I'm not sure. But basically, it took all day. Whoa, that truck just went almost through that red light. Was just about to, but then noticed that there was a cop sitting there, and then so stopped after the crosswalk. Whew. Okay, that seems like a fitting conclusion. All right, John Monroe signing off from Sunset Boulevard and a Pacific Coast Highway.